This is the Apetibi Ielosha Oshunyemi Akala Tunde, and you are watching Got to Be Oshun television. In this space, I give Black women and femmes the tools that they need to liberate themselves from muling and from mammying and to start the journey towards the fulfillment of their own destiny. So, welcome. Happy to see everybody. Um, I was watching a Stephanie Perry video yesterday, and if you know me, I recommend Stephanie Perry, and I recommend Exodus Summit, and I recommend Vicarious. All of these groups are attached to helping Black women to move abroad. So those are groups that I recommend. If you've taken my classes, if you watch me, then you've heard me recommend these groups before. And so you know that these groups are things that I support and that I watch. So I was watching a Stephanie Perry video, and she made the point that if you have an online business, you should make sure that people who see you on video, who see things that you post, who you interact with via email, know what your message is. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some time to make sure that everyone is clear on what my message is. Because I think for the most part, people understand, but I always think clarity is good. Clarity is never wrong, and you can never have too much clarity. Before we move on, there are resources for getting everything that you need, every spiritual tool that you need in order to navigate the current state of the earth, the current state of Earth Mother Onile, and everything that is happening due to the state that she is in cosmically, physically, and spiritually. I have given you free and very, very low cost resources to navigate those things. So my book is in there. The Grimoire of the Black Witch. This is a spiritual textbook. This teaches you as a Black woman and femme how to use your inherent magic, right? Um, like my classes are in there. There are free Black Witchcraft classes in there, and there are bundled classes in there. So with the bundled classes, you get some video classes, and then you get some of my writing. Within the Black Witchcraft Grimoire, you get my writing and oh no, that's a different book. Within the Black Witchcraft Grimoire, you get my writing and you get a couple of videos. However, in my Raw Honey book, which is my sexual alchemy book for Black witches, you get my writing, you get video classes, and you get a playlist for each chapter. So anyway, I put all those resources in the description. If I did not, I don't know if I put the Raw Honey link in the description, but if I did, now go in and check, and I will put that there for you all as well. So everything that I'm talking about, if you go to the link in the description, there are links to get to what I am discussing this afternoon. So I wanted to take some time to make sure that my message has been clarified, that my message is clear. And I think that in order to make sure that my message is clear, I have to make sure that everyone is clear on why I do what I do. So we will start with the fact that all praises be to Oshun, all praises be to Obatala, all praises be to Orimi, all praises be to Ezuli Fueda, all praises be to Orumala, that I, in 2024, turned 55, in October of 2024. So I am 55 years old. So what I'm going to discuss with you is very pivotal parts of that 55-year experience of living in this world as a Black woman. And the reason that I'm going to discuss this with you is to help you to understand why I came to the conclusions that I came to and how those conclusions can be of help to you. Why you should care. Why you should give a damn. You know what I'm saying? So, first thing, what I want to go through today is all of the things that I already tried and realized tragically that they did not work. I tried many things and then tragically realized that they did not work. So, I am from a small southern town. I'm from a rural southern area. I come from a very high achieving type of family, starting all the way back with my great great grandmother, and even before her, great 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 grandfather and great 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 grandmother. We are some high achievers. And I'm not taking any of that away from my ancestors. And obviously, I'm proud of everything that we were able to to achieve, everything that we were able to do, all the goals we were able to reach. But what that does when you come from a family of high achievers is, especially as a Black person growing up in the United States, it puts that specter of Black excellence over you. So when I'm calling it a specter because Black excellence is something that pushes you to believe that your life has to look and has to be a certain way. And that when your life is not a certain way, that you are not only letting yourself down, that you are not only letting your family down, but you are letting down your entire ethnic group, your entire race, when your life doesn't look a certain way. So let's start with that. From the beginning of my life, I was trying to be Black excellence. I was trying to do Black excellence. And when you are raised in a high achieving family, there's never a day off. So anything that I did had to be excellent. Now, my mother was not after you got to be a certain age, she was not overtly pushy. You know, how you might have a helicopter mom or how you might have a dragon mom or things like that. She was all of that when you were younger. So by the time you had a fully developed, rational system of rationality in your mind, she really didn't have to do any of that because she had already and always made you understand what your place was in this world. So my mother wasn't pushy because she didn't have to be, right? But having the specter of Black excellence over my life means that I was always trying to be perfect, perfect in every area. I had to look perfect. I had to sound perfect. I had to have the perfect walk. I had to have perfect grades. I had to have the perfect boyfriend, the perfect prom dress, the perfect prom experience. Once I had the perfect ACT score, I had to go to the perfect school and have the perfect major and continue to be the perfect girl all throughout that. So, as a young girl, even before I went off to college, I was beginning to see that being perfect didn't work. Being perfect wasn't getting me the rewards that I thought that it would get me, right? So, it wasn't working. Because the promise is sometimes spoken, sometimes unspoken. If you are perfect, then you will get everything that you want. If you are perfect, then everybody will love you. Your family will love you, your community will love you, and you will be beloved and well taken care of, and coddled and spoiled and petted. And that wasn't what was happening. So even before I went off to college, I could see that being perfect may not be the answer. I hadn't necessarily realized at that young age that it was harmful. My birthday is in October, and so I went off to school. But when I went off to school, I was 17, super, super, super young. So by the time I went off to school, I hadn't fully realized that being perfect all the time was hurting me. But I certainly was in the process of realizing that it wasn't getting me the rewards that were promised. I wasn't getting those. So when I got into undergrad at the illustrious Fisk University, Fisk forever, where'er you be, we shall still love thee, Fisk, our alma mater. When I got into undergraduate school, I began to move away from the perfect, I had already been a bit of a nonconformist in my mother's house. My mother was a hippie, so to be a nonconformist, you kind of had to be extreme. So some of my dressing was a little extreme. I would put the blue stripes in my hair. Now, back in those days, we weren't actually dyeing our hair. We had something that kind of looked like mascara that we would put in our hair to color it in the punk rock colors. So I have like the little blue stripes in my hair, and I might wear like blue lipstick. I wore like huge earrings, just the full kind of 80s punk vibe was what I would give. So I've been a bit of a nonconformist anyway. But once I got into undergrad, I leaned even further away from that and was shocked to see that the sky didn't fall. I'm not being quote unquote perfect and nothing terrible is happening. I'm still here at this great school. I've still made some great friends. I'm still having a good time. Imagine that, you know? So yeah, some people did use the Kool-Aid powder, Perry. I remember the Kool-Aid. So, I was like, oh, that's odd. Who knew? So then that was the first thing that I was like, I don't know if that works. So then the second thing that I did was, by the time I was 20, I was engaged to, of course, the perfect man. He went to Vandy, the other perfect school. And by the time I was 20, I had conceived my first child, and he and I got married. So here I am, married to the perfect man, having, the perfect child at the perfect age to be having children. Or so everybody was saying. But in my mind, it felt rushed. In my mind, it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. And I resisted it, I verbally resisted it and said that I didn't want to do it. And only the other young women in my family supported me. So I wanted to have the child, my oldest daughter, but I wasn't necessarily interested in immediately getting married. So we had already been engaged. And so then once we got pregnant, I was like, it's fine, I'll have the baby and then we'll work towards getting married once we both graduate from undergrad, because we were juniors in undergrad when we got pregnant. But that, everybody was shocked. Oh my God, no, we cannot do that. Obviously, I had to get married, and his mother was appalled, and my mother was appalled, and they set us down as a group, and y'all got to get married right now. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I think that's a little rushed. I think that's a little bit rushed, not really what I'm interested in doing. But just like I had been taught that being perfect was going to get me certain rewards, I had also been taught, being a little black girl from a small southern town, that being married before you gave birth was going to give you certain rewards, and that being married would give me a certain type of respect, and that being married would sit me in kind of a place of honor, and that being married meant that I was a good woman, and that I was correct, and that I was virtuous, and that I was following the proper path of womanhood. I had been taught that that's what being married meant. Now, those things had been spoken verbatim, but, I wasn't sure. But I did have that bit of mother culture in my ear. And so I got married. And so literally from the moment, I don't know how, we have been dating maybe, I guess, a year or two, maybe, I guess, probably closer to 3 years, actually. I'm thinking about semesters and not necessarily years. But we have been dating, I guess, about 3 years, and of course had known each other a little bit longer. And then we got married. And from the moment we were married, from the moment I became his property, he became terribly physically abusive. And obviously, there were some signs. Obviously, there were red flags. Obviously, there were all of those things. But at the time, as a 19-year-old little girl, that's what I'm calling myself. If you are 19, I'm not calling you that if you don't like being called a little girl. But I can now look back and see that my 19-year-old self was a little girl. So as a 19-year-old little girl who had been raised to center marriage and to center a relationship with a man and to center romance and things of that nature, all of those red flags, all of his behaviors, all of his actions. As I'm talking to you guys about it now, I remember a time when I broke up with him. And the way that we got back together was that I was in my room, and my mother was changing out her bedroom, and so she had given me her old linen, which was really beautiful, and I always loved it. So I was putting my mother's old linen and her beautiful curtains up in my little, shabby little dorm room. And I heard someone knocking on my window. And it was so scary. If you have gone to an HBCU, then you know that most of them are in areas that are not necessarily the best, because they've been forcibly economically deprived. So somebody was knocking on my window. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then he says my name. So that now I can look back and see is bad. That is a red flag. But at the time, I was reading it as, ooh, he's so in love with me. Ooh, he likes me that much that he's been following me on my campus, not on his campus, which was across town. He knew when I was in my room. Ooh, he found a way to watch me in my window. All of that was seeming cute to me, because I had been taught to center men. I had been taught to center their attention. I had been taught to receive validation from that. So now looking back, yes, shouldn't have been in a relationship with him. Definitely shouldn't have married him. But by the time he actually became physically abusive, we were already married. Had one child and had another one on the way, you know? And so in that moment, I realized that what I had been taught to do as far as marriage wasn't working. So I had been taught to do certain things and to be perfect. And I realized it wasn't working. So I stopped because it wasn't working. Right? So then I had been taught to do certain things as far as marriage and creating a family and creating a home and becoming an adult woman and, doing these types of things. And I realized in the midst of, getting my ass beat, while I was pregnant, and then when I wasn't pregnant, and again when I was pregnant again, that didn't work. That wasn't working either. And I was like, okay, so then I'm going to stop because this isn't working. And in the middle of seeing that something isn't working and deciding to stop, you have to make some deeper decisions. You have to reach out and grasp for yourself some deeper choices, because life makes you feel as a Black woman that you don't have a choice. And I am aware of that. That's why I'm telling you my story. That's why I'm giving you the full thing, right? It will make you feel as if you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice but to marry this man if you're going to have this baby. You don't have a choice but to stay in this marriage with this man if you want to be respected, if you want to be taken seriously, if you want to be treated well. Life will make you feel like that. So when you see that something isn't working, you will have to go within and grab and grasp your liberation by yourself. By yourself. Very rarely are other people going to support you. Very rarely, because they are still trying to do the things that don't work. So at some point I saw, okay, marriage is not working. I'm getting my ass beat. I'm afraid that he's going to kill me. I'm living in fear of my life. I'm scared to go to sleep. I'm scared to leave my children with him. I'm scared to do any of these things because I think that he might kill me. And at that point in time, honestly, you guys, I thought I was being dramatic. I really, really did. My children were born in 1990 and 1991. Those were not times when people were openly acknowledging the amount of women that are killed by their abusive partners. That wasn't openly being acknowledged. But in my heart and in my soul, I felt that he could kill me. And so many of the times when he beat me, I felt like I almost died. One time he cut off my air supply and I felt like I was going to die. And all that I could think about was, and I was flailing, and all I could think about was my children in the next room and how my children were going to come in and find me dead, because I knew after he killed me that he was going to leave. And so I remember after that fight ended, in my mind thinking, I've got to end this marriage before he kills me, but not having any social backing for that. Nobody believed that. My family and his family, when I said that he was beating me up, they said, we don't see any scars on you, so it must not be that bad. That's what I was told. And this was the mindset of the time. So I'm not saying that out of judgment. I want you to understand where my head was and where everybody else's heads were. So I decided I had to leave that marriage. I said, I have to leave or he's going to kill me. And then who's going to raise my children? Because if I'm not alive, he certainly then is going to kill them. So I said, I have to leave. And I realized this isn't working. So I have to do something different. It wasn't a popular choice. It wasn't a choice that other people supported. But I could see that it wasn't working. And so while people thought or had told me that marriage was this thing, while all the movies and the songs and the books said that marriage was this thing, I saw with my own eyes that it wasn't. It's not. That piece of paper and that ceremony does not give you respect. That piece of paper and that ceremony does not give you love. That piece of paper and that ceremony does not give you comfort or care. It does not give you protection. It does not mean that you will be provided for. That is not what marriage means. All of those things come from marrying someone with good character. Marriage by itself does not do anything but legally bind you to another person. That's what it does. So when I realized that being married wasn't going to automatically give me those things, I said, well, I need to go. And so I chose at that moment in my life to not elevate a romantic relationship to the status of center in my life. So then here I was, a young single girl with two babies under the age of 3 when I got divorced for the first time. And I was finishing up my bachelor's degree in English at Fisk University on the dean's list. Now, don't get me wrong. Grades was still T. Now, don't get me wrong. So I'm there. I'm finishing school. When I finished school, I realized that my children then would need to, at some point, go to school. When my children were in daycare, they were in the only African-centered daycare in Nashville at that time. There was a program in Nashville at that time that if you were a single mother and if you were in college, the state of Tennessee would pay for your children's daycare. So I was able to choose the daycare that was closest to my home and that I thought was best and put them in that daycare, and the state paid for it. So luckily there was an African-centered daycare, Black owned, by a wonderful Black woman who became my close friend, magnificent. If she still had a school, I would tell you to go and put your children in it. But now she's teaching at a university level. She's giving someone else her love and her care. Magnificent nurturer, magnificent woman, still a close friend. Anyway, that's the daycare that my children were in. So at some point, they were too old for daycare. And when they were too old for daycare, I began to then look for schools for them to go into. At this point, I had become Pan-African because, lo and behold, there was another thing that wasn't working. So the other thing that wasn't working in my life was centering whiteness. The other thing that wasn't working in my life was having whiteness as king and having whiteness as your God and believing that whatever you did that was just like white people made you better and made you superior and made you the top. Oh, she got a good job just like the white people. Oh, she driving that car just like the white people. When I tell you I come from a small rural southern town, I'm not exaggerating. And in my small town, we were, the Black population was extremely small. So the way of complimenting someone was saying that they were doing something just like white people. So while people consciously may not have been thinking we're centering white people, it's what people automatically said. So I reached a point in my life when I was like, well, that's not true. And it was being at Fisk that gave me the ability to see things differently. It was being at a place that had Black leadership and that had Black people in positions of power. And it was the kindness and the love and the nurturing and the care that the faculty and that my professors and my mentors and my advisors gave me at Fisk that helped me to see, centering whiteness, having whiteness be the standard. That don't seem to be true. My professors were brilliant. I was an English major and I was taught by Dr. Leslie Collins Ibarra-Tarun. Dr. Leslie Collins was the contemporary peer and good friend of Langston Hughes and Arna Bontemps and all of those people who started the Harlem Renaissance. He knew them personally. So yes, he was super old by the time he was my teacher. But I'm talking about that's how bad he was. That's the level his scholarship was on. And he could, bam, send you to a book just like that. I take pride in being able to do the same thing for my clients. But I learned that from him. Anytime you had a question, he had a book reference that you could go to. So I was amazed. I had been taught by white people all my life in my hometown and had never seen the level of brilliance that I was experiencing from my professors and my advisors at Fisk University. And so I said, maybe centering whiteness is not where it's at. And I realized in that moment, that's not working for me. Centering white, wasn't Dr. Collins amazing? Centering whiteness was not working for me. And so I stopped. And I said, I'm going to have to do something different. Again, at that time, in the early 90s, outside of anyone but my peers, because among my peers, there was a resurgence of the Black Power movement happening. So if you look up, we had like Black Power rap coming out. We had like Public Enemy. We had this type of thing happening. So among my peers, we were all moving away from centering whiteness. But everybody else was still doing it. So my decision to stop centering whiteness, again, was not a popular decision. Nobody really agreed with it. Everybody kind of thought I was crazy, honestly, you know? But again, I looked and I said, that's not working. That's not working. I'm going to have to do something different. And so I did. So then by the time my children were school age, and by school age, I mean 5 and 6, I had to find a school to put them in. And the only school that I could find that somewhat met my criteria, not completely, but somewhat met my criteria, was the local Black Catholic school. And I conceded to them because they had an ankh in their cathedral. And I think the priest wore a kente cloth on his robe. But it was called St. Vincent de Paul. If you're from Nashville, then you are aware of it. And I said, okay, they can go over here to St. Vincent de Paul. And I sent my daughters to St. Vincent de Paul, my oldest daughter to St. Vincent de Paul. First problem was that they was teaching her Hail Mary full of grace. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. That ain't working for me. And the second problem was that I had taught my baby how to read by the time she was 4, as I did with all of my babies. By the time she got there, you know, some of the other children there were just now learning how to read. So they were telling her that she couldn't read and doing all of these different things. So at some point I said, this school is not working. By this time I had married husband number 2. And I said, this school isn't working. And I was pregnant with child number 3. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to stop doing this. This was, I guess, 94, maybe 95, 1994, maybe 95, something around that time. And nobody was homeschooling. People who were homeschooling were terrible fundamentalist Christian white people. Racist, terrible fundamentalist Christian white people. Those were the only people who were homeschooling, and even they were doing it in secret. So when after looking at all of the choices, and I tried a different school for them. So I had tried the local Black Catholic school. And when I took her out of there, by the time I took my oldest daughter out, it was now time for my second oldest daughter to go off to school too. Then I tried the Muslim school, the Betty Shabazz school. That too was terrible. I was like, okay, neither one of these are working. It's not working. I have to do something different. And so then I decided to homeschool. I already had my degree, had already started working on my master's degree in English. So basically was being trained to be a teacher. I was like, I could teach my own kids. And so I started homeschooling because there was a thing that I was doing that wasn't working. And so I decided to do something different. It was not popular. It was not supported. My mother was angry. My siblings were angry. My husband didn't necessarily like it, right? But I said that other stuff isn't working. So I'm going to have to do something different, whether it's popular or not. After that, as I said, I had married husband number two. With husband number two, before meeting husband number two, I had started worshiping the Orisha. I had learned about the Orisha, had started worshiping the Orisha because the other thing that wasn't working in my life was Christianity and Islam. I had tried both. Raised a Christian, of course, AME church. And then once I got into Pan-Africanism, I was, of course, introduced to the Nation of Islam and then Sunni Islam. So I had tried the Nation of Islam, and I wasn't down with the Nation of Islam, so did not even try Sunni Islam, even though people was, trying to make me try it. So those two things weren't working, so I began to study and try to find the actual original religious practices of our ancestors. And I was blessed with, faculty at Fisk that explained to me what our original traditions were. And then I was able to see how it was the same thing as the hoodoo that we had practiced my whole life. Black culture that we had practiced growing up in the South, the different things that we did that were called superstitions, and the different things that we did to bring luck. All of those things were actually part and parcel of the religious tradition that is hoodoo, that is, of course, based upon the West and Central African foundations. So there was the other thing that wasn't working. And so I decided to do something else. Again, at this time, 93, 94, this was not popular, guys. Everybody thought I was worshiping the devil. My mother threatened to call CPS and take my children away from me because I was going to make them go to hell. Nobody was supporting me. But for me, again, I said, this isn't working. So we have to do something different. This isn't the religion for me or my children. It does not speak to me. It calls me cursed. And I said, I cannot continue to pray to an entity that thinks I'm cursed just by virtue of my existing. That's literally what I told my mother. And so I stopped. I said, I'm going to have to do something else because this isn't working. So by the time I'm in the second marriage, we worship the Orisha. We get initiated as priest and priestess in the religion. And I'm excited. I'm happy. Oh my God, I'm a priestess of Oshun. I'm a homeschooling mother. My godfather wanted us to begin to work with his clients that he had in the area where we lived, because he lived in Milwaukee and we lived in Nashville, and he had clients there. So because he now had godchildren there, we were the people that were working with his clients. So at some point we had an Elay, a house, a temple, right? A group of people. And so I have an Elay. And when you have an Elay, you sometimes work with people from other Elays. You sometimes have meeting and gatherings with other people who worship the Orisha. My godfather was initiated in Oyatunji, so even though he didn't necessarily stay in Oyatunji, we would go to different things that the family at Oyatunji was having, etc. And again, I found myself in the conundrum. I'm seeing things. I'm watching things happen. I'm seeing how people talk to women in particular. I'm seeing how people treat women in particular. I'm hearing what people have to say about women in particular. And then I'm watching who's doing all the work. I mean, the actual work of making sure that things happen. And I was like, I don't know if this is working. I don't know if this is working. It doesn't look like it's working. And oh my goodness, I love Oshun and I love my ancestors and I love Ori, but this don't look like it's working. Now I must say that one took a little bit longer. I must say that one was a little bit more difficult to pivot in. But at some point I had to pivot. I was like, this isn't working. Something isn't right. It isn't working. But what I knew in my heart was that Oshun would not lead me in the wrong direction. What I knew in my heart was that my ancestors, my grandmother, my great grandmother, would not lead me in the wrong direction. What I knew in my heart was that my head would not lead me in the wrong direction. So again, I began to study, I began to research, I began to dig deeper. And as I dug deeper, I saw that the way that most people were practicing the tradition, Isheshe, at that time was male centered, and that the tradition had never been male centered. But coming into and being forced into a male centered society was making us make the tradition male centered, sometimes dangerously so, right? And so again, it became time to pivot. Part of this pivot meant that I couldn't stay married to that second husband either, because he certainly was a participant in that way of life. And that is how he felt that things should be. That was right to him. That was correct to him. So I knew I couldn't stay. This was difficult. This was so much more difficult than leaving the first husband, right? Because while with the first husband, I could say he's beating my ass, and only only the old heads was going to try to make me stay. Anybody under the age of 40 was going to say, get up out of there, right? When I got ready to leave the first husband. But for the second husband, what can I say? He's patriarchal. That wasn't even a term that was being used. Didn't nobody even know what that term meant. When I created my first website way back in 1993, I was talking about the patriarchy. Nobody knew what that meant. All of the questions I got about the website, nobody was paying attention to what was written there, what I was saying there. I had beautiful images of the Venus of Willendorf and all these different things, explaining how all of life had come from the Black woman. People weren't paying attention to that. All my emails would be like, what does this word mean? Patriarchy. Nobody knew what that meant. It wasn't even a word that was in circulation at the time. So what was I going to tell people as to why I was now divorcing a second husband, right? So when I tell you it was not supported, it was not popular. But for me, when something isn't working, then I stop. I stop doing it. So that is how we find ourselves where we find ourselves today. That is how I find myself here, trying to give this information to you. That is how I find myself within Ile that is Oshun centered and woman centered and gynocentric, centered around women and children and femmes. That is the center and the focus of my current Ile. And Ile itself is a feminine thing. Look up the word, understand the meaning of the word. So that is how I find myself here. That is how I find myself teaching Black witchcraft. Because Black witchcraft is wider in scope than the Orisha, than West African spirituality, than New African Vodun, than hoodoo or voodoo or conjure or root working. Witchcraft is wider in scope. So those things contain elements of the craft of the wise. But as women, we also have access to and are connected to and have a birthright to the woman-centered power all over the world. So when I teach Black witchcraft, I'm teaching the Black origins of the woman-centered power globally and cosmically, all over the world and all over the cosmos. This is how we came to our current place of making sure that Black women and femmes know exactly who we are, who and what we are in the cosmos, know the power that we hold, and know how to wield it, know how to use it to get what we want. This is how I came to my current place now of having homeschooled 6 children, 4 of whom have already graduated from undergrad with highest of honors, 2 of whom have graduate degrees, 2 of whom are also working on terminal degrees, my oldest 2, right? And now have a 5th child now in college at an HBCU, of course, with honors. So this is how I came to this place, homeschooling people up until that level, educating people up until that level, building big people, right? This is how I came to the place that I am now. So my message, my philosophy, and what I am here to give you and to offer you and to teach you and to show you the ropes of is how to center and prioritize yourself. My life works and my children's lives work, and we are able to access the things that we need and a lot of the things that we want because we center ourselves. So I'm here to show you the magic, the political power, the personal power, the high level of optimum physical health, the high level of the high emotional state, and the spiritual connection that you gain by centering yourself. I am here to teach you the adage of not your mule so that you will stop muling. The reason that you mule as a Black woman is because you think that being a mule is going to get you a reward. You think that if you are people's mule, that they will love you. You think that if you are people's mule, that they will appreciate you. You think that if you are people's mule, that they will be able to see your power and your brilliance and the warmth and the beauty that you bring. You think the way to bring people's attention to your goodness is by being their mule. And because I've already found out that that doesn't work, I'm here to show you how not to do that. Because muling is a pattern of behavior. It is not something that you can just let go of like so. Like how I got this pillow and then say, nope, I ain't gonna mule no more. It doesn't leave you like that. Because it's a pattern, right? You've been taught that it's appropriate for you to be a mule. You've been taught that as a Black woman, the mule is your place. You've been taught that being a mule is what makes you virtuous and is what makes you worthy of love and care and kindness and community. You have been taught that if you are not a mule, then you are not worthy of kindness or care or community, and that you will be out here in this world alone. So in order for you to let go of muling, I got to lead you and guide you through the steps. So that's what I'm here to do. That's my message. That's my philosophy. That's what I'm here teaching you. That's what I'm here showing you, that you must center yourself. Centering anybody except you is going to put you in that position that I showed you I was in so many times in my life, where I had to look around and say, this isn't working. This isn't doing what they said it was going to do. Can you imagine how many times I sacrificed myself and my wants and desires during all of those times of trying to be those things that I was told I was supposed to be? How much of my actual wants and needs did I sacrifice? How many times did I put my needs on the backest of burners, the very backest of burners, to cater to someone else's needs because I thought then they would turn around and cater to mine? How many times did I do that before I realized that doesn't work? Right? Right. That's what I'm here for. That is the reason for Black Witchcraft classes. That is the reason for Witchy Wednesday every Wednesday night. Teaching you who and what you are in the cosmos from a spiritual perspective. Because everything is spiritual before it is physical. Don't be out here believing in this fiction of rational life and rational thinking that was created by Descartes during the Age of Enlightenment, when white men were thinking up reasons that it was okay to enslave people who were not white. So that rationality, that rational thinking, they created that thought process at that time. Prior to that, everybody knew that everything was spirit before it became physical. Everybody believed in magic and everybody practiced magic prior to that. Look it up, study it, learn it, right? So I'm teaching you Black witchcraft every Wednesday so that you can then have that whole week of soaking that in and understanding how to use this magical vessel of a body that you get as a Black woman, that you gave to yourself, that you made for yourself. Every Wednesday, you get the opportunity to see how to do that. These are the tools that you have to do that, right? I have an Ile. I have a house. If you are interested in practicing West and Central African religion, I have a woman-centered safe space for you to do that, where there are no predators, where no one is preying on you, where no one is exploiting your labor, where no one is expecting free labor from you for anything, but we are sitting together as Black women sharing resources and learning about our connection to our ancestral spiritual systems. I have an Ile where you can get that type of love and that type of care, right? I have books. I have ebooks that will teach you about how to homeschool. I have ebooks that will teach you about your sexual power and how to use that. And I have ebooks that will teach you about your power in general, where it came from, the historical origins of it, and how to properly use it in your life. This is why. That is my giant why. I want you, and my hope and my prayer and my desire and what I see for you in my vision every day is a world where Black women feel free to release themselves from everything that is not working. You can say, that is not working. I'm going to do something else. That's what I'm here to do. That is my message. That is my reason. And that's what I'm always offering to you. So I'm never going to miss the opportunity to call out the patriarchy, white masculinist imperialism that is holding all of us hostage to its terror. Never going to miss the opportunity to call it out. Sometimes I'll come on here, I'll do a live video, and I'll be calling out the patriarchy, and somebody will say, I like it when you talk about magic. I am talking about magic. Liberating yourself from the patriarchy is magic. Liberating yourself from white masculinist imperialism is magic, right? I'm never going to miss the opportunity to call it out, ever, right? I'm never going to miss the opportunity to discuss how powerful you inherently are as a Black woman, how you are currency. You are the very currency that built the global north, the Western world. You are the very currency that is referred to as natural resources coming from the global south, the rest of the world. Never going to miss the opportunity to say that. And people, trolls especially, but people will be upset that I'm centering Black women and not centering other people. They'll be mad. Well, all women. That's not who I'm talking about. And men too. That's not who I'm talking about. People will be mad, but I'm never going to miss the opportunity to do that because you are who I am here for. In particular, I am about the business of us being in community and creating a liberated space where we can all freely say, with no judgment and with support and with acceptance and in community, we can all freely say, this isn't working, so I'm not going to do it anymore. And you don't have to worry, like I did, about being ostracized. And you will never have to figure it out by yourself, like I did. And you will never have to sit there alone as the lone voice crying in the wilderness that is speaking truth. You don't have to do that. I'm here. I'm here. So that is why I'm here. That is the mission. That is my reason So if you ever want to understand why is she teaching these witchcraft classes? I thought she was a priestess of Oshun. Priestess of Oshun be talking about witchcraft? What's going on? Now you understand. If you ever want to understand why isn't she Christian? Why isn't she talking about Jesus? Why isn't she talking about Muhammad? Why isn't she talking about Yahweh and Moses? Now you understand. If you ever want to understand why isn't she encouraging black women to get married? And why isn't she telling us that we should be virtuous? And why isn't she talking to us about modesty? Now you understand. Why isn't she forcing compulsive heterosexuality upon us? Why isn't she saying everybody needs to, is Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve? Why isn't she saying that? Now you understand. Why isn't she anti-abortion? Why isn't she saying that we should be, giving our bodies over to make babies for the revolution? Now you understand. This answered those questions. So ain't nobody got to wonder ever again, right? This is the reason. This is my reason. This is my message. If you feel me, if you are touched by what's being said here, please go into the description box, get your hands on some of them free and low-cost resources. Still running a sale right now. The sale code and everything is in that same Google Doc that I put in the description. I'm running a 50% off sale right now. So you can get 50% off of every class, every ebook, every reading, because I also do readings, right? If you want a one-on-one with me to take a deeper look into your spiritual life, I do that. If you want a one-on-one with me where we look and we find out where in West or Central Africa your ancestors came from, where they stopped in the Caribbean, and what indigenous people they mixed with, I do that as well. And I give you historical facts about the West and Central African place you're from, the Caribbean stop that your ancestors likely made, and the indigenous culture that they are likely mixed with. If you want a reading for that, I do that. If you need magical mentorship, if you are new to magic, if you are new to letting go of the lie and the fiction and the pretense that is rational thinking and leaning into your connection to the cosmos and to the energies of the universe, I do mentorship around that as well. And all of that right now is half off. I did the reading of the year on the 1st. So all of that right now is half off. If you are interested in classes to teach you more about the Orisha from a woman-centered perspective, from the actual origin of the tradition, I have that. If you are interested in understanding how our ancestors were the first futurists and technological advancers, I have classes on that, right? If you are interested in reading about how I came to all of these conclusions, I have books on that. So that's me. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm here. And that's what I'm always, every day, no matter what I come on here to say, that's what I'm always offering to you. Do you need to be on Facebook to participate in the detox? No. I didn't put it on Facebook this time because I know that a lot of people aren't on there. But that's a good question, Umi. Thank you for asking. All right. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share. Please share this video. Please like the video. If you're interested in being on this journey with me, obviously subscribe. If you also become a member of the channel, which is different from being a subscriber, then you will have access to my weekly Black Witchcraft classes. Membership is $14.99 a month, and it is what is required to have this kind of information be given to you with book references, with song references, with historical accuracy around how we actually exist and participate in this world as Black women. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you always for your support. Our Black Witchcraft classes for 2025 do begin next week, next Wednesday. So if you are a member, We will be starting our first course of classes, a 4-class course teaching about New African Vodun, which is the brainchild of my godfather, the Metahochi Kofi Omiwale Zanu. All right, look forward to seeing you. If you want to join anything, the information, as I said before, is in the description box. Everyone, please enjoy your afternoon. Happy Thursday to everybody. Ecstasy, abundance, and bliss to all of those within the sound of my voice who are wishing the same for me and mine. And as always, we wish the lessons of life on those who are ignorant enough to wish us otherwise. Enjoy your Thursday, guys. Peace.